Discover how a backyard was turned into 3 luxury homes. Welcome to another exciting episode of Meet the Developer. Siobhan, behind this unassuming house lies behind us a site which you have turned into a masterpiece. It's such a secluded space. Can you tell us how you identify the site and its potential?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we spend a lot of time building relationships with agents, estate agents, land agents, and sellers alike. This site actually came to us via an agent. It was one house with a really large back garden, and they just wanted to sell it. They were selling it on the open market. Another developer had become involved at one stage, so they was kind of aware that there was development potential. They didn't want to act as quickly as the seller needed to act. People have private reasons that they need to move. We kind of then jumped in, took over the purchase of the site, and moved quickly on it and bought it unconditionally.
Okay then, so in terms of buying an unconditional site, what are the risks involved, especially from a developer? Because you're buying it on the basis of potential and what you can make of it, but yet at the same time, we all know there are massive hurdles when it comes to actually securing planning, especially in places that are established such as this.
It's educated risk, right? So we will always look at a site and we will always be pretty sure. I mean, you can never be totally sure, but we'll always be pretty sure that what we can achieve planning for. The biggest risk is sellers then realising that there's this development potential and then wanting to inflate the price, which is not a problem if you can structure a deal that means that, you can take an option out with them or a subject to planning option that they stay in the site and then you only buy it if you get the planning. People don't always want to do that. They just want to release their equity. They need to move on for their own personal reasons. And then you just buy it unconditionally. And then obviously you're looking at paying fair market value, probably the top end of market value. So they've got what they need to move on, and we've got the unconditional site at a price we're comfortable with. Okay.
When you're buying sites which have the potential, you value them at a high-end valuation, whereby the banks, when they look at it, they still value it as a standard house with a big garden. So how do you manage the financing of projects like this? Do you then top up the gap, or do you use other alternative finance?
Yeah, I mean, we're quite fortunate the way we structure the business because we do buy a lot unconditionally. We try not to take any borrowing out on the purchase of the sites because when you're buying unconditionally, it can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So to have finance on a site for a long period of time while you're trying to get planning, it's quite debilitating, for your end figures. We tend to purchase the sites through as cash purchases, which actually helps with our unconditional purchases because it's quick for the sellers. If their main purpose is wanting to move on quite quickly, we're in the position to move on quite quickly. And then we got a good relationship with the bank, so then all our development finance is done by the bank.
I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, not every developer has the luxury of keeping quite a large sum to cash purchase a site like this. How do you manage your cash positions in terms of holding it for a deal and then not utilizing for other projects, as I assume that you have multiple projects on the go?
We do have multiple projects on the go. We are very conscientious of the sites we buy and how I'm quite risk adverse, so I will always make sure that we are only purchasing sort of within our limitations. We have family funds and stuff that we can go out to for additional finance if something comes up that we need additional finance for, but generally I sort of try and mitigate it to what we can actually manage within Archco Developments.
I understand. I mean, a site like this sounds like it was a family home, and most of the time, as we've stated, the moment that they realize that there is development potential, they think there's a jackpot here. How many sites are you walking away from just mainly because seller expectations are so high, as well as sometimes maybe amateur developers who are coming in offering exorbitant prices and inflating that expectation?
It is one of the biggest obstacles we have to try and overcome. And in answer to your question, how many sites do we walk away from? Most of them. That's the honest part of it. I mean, if we look at 100 sites, 99 of them you probably end up walking away from because the seller expectations are just far higher. And it's, there are a few reasons for that. Like say you have maybe less experienced developers that come in to purchase sites that think they can build for less than they can actually build for, so they kind of end up paying more money. And sometimes people are working on much smaller margins. Times like at the moment, people need to keep teams busy, so they will be prepared to buy sites and work on smaller margins than most developers would work off of. That's really tricky to deal with, but like you say, you have to keep going through the process. You have to keep viewing the sites. You have to keep building relationships. You have to keep speaking to the sellers. You have to stay in touch with them. Sometimes people are not prepared to sell a certain figure at one time, but things change. It's a long game with a lot of it, but it's a lot about relationships, a lot about building trust. People tend to want to sell to people they trust. People want to work with people they trust. So if you can build that with the sellers, then you're halfway there.
So you secured the site in 2016.
Yes.
And then you went into planning, and I guess that's where the crux of the matter really lies in terms of trying to realize that potential. Let's talk about how you managed to overcome the obstacles and pass this site through planning. You have a beautiful site here and well-proportioned house. How did you manage to achieve planning for these grand houses at the back of quite a small property which had a vast garden?
So this house here had this huge, great big garden, which almost felt a little bit like woodland. It was actually wrongly classified as open space by the council, which we was aware of, and we knew it needs to be reclassified as recreational rear garden space. We knew that was going to be a little bit of a long game, so we had to apply for that, which took 2 years. And then it took another 2 years to achieve the planning. We're really conscientious. We pride ourselves on being a developer that builds the right developments in the right areas. There was no part of us that was going to go, let's try and put a block of flats on here. We knew that it had to be in keeping with the environment, in keeping with the other homes, in keeping with what the market demographic was as well. You have to build things that people are going to want to buy. We was always going to go for sort of high-end, detached 3 or 4 houses. We initially went for our architect, he works a lot in Croydon, and he was like, let's go for these really modern, innovative kind of builds. And it just wasn't sitting right with me. It just needed to work for the local community. It needs to fit in with the local community. You need to know your area. If you're developing somewhere, you need to know what's going to work there. And we've done a lot of research and looked at a lot of other developments, and we come up with this scheme. It was well received, and we received planning. We had a lot of things we had to deal with, a lot of issues that we kind of had to overcome, but we did that. So
it seems like you had a double challenge here. Mm-hmm. Reclassification of land, which is a separate matter by itself before you even get to planning. Mm-hmm. And then the planning. Let's just talk more about the reclassification of the land.
Yeah, you have to be really mindful when you go into those sorts of things. You cannot just reclassify land easily. You have to be able to prove that it can be justified as a different classification, or that it was maybe not meant to be classified in the way it was classified to start off with. And that was our argument here, is that this piece of land had always been recreational rear garden, and the fact that it had sort of accidentally been grouped in with Bettswood and Bettsmead Common as this kind of protected open space, but it wasn't. It had always been a rear garden. If you can diligently prove your point, then obviously it's not a problem. Yeah, you can never be 100% sure, but you've got to be pretty sure, because unless you can do it, that would have killed the planning off straight away. But we was 99.9% sure that it was originally reclassified wrong, and we would be able to reclassify it.
So going into this project, you factored in the substantial time that it was going to take from reclassifying the land and going into the planning. Mm-hmm. And would it have been viable to do the project if you were using outside finance, not in-house?
We probably could. I mean, what we had here, what we was very fortunate with, is obviously we had the original house, which we did while the whole process was going on. We had that rented out, we had it generating an income. So in principle, there was an income coming from the site. So had we had finance, we would have been able to cover the cost of the finance. So this site would have worked quite well for that. As we have done other sites, for example, when we've bought other sites that have got existing houses on, we're able to go and get lending, because we know that basically the rent that we're getting from the existing donor house is going to cover the finance cost, and banks are happy with that as well, So that's, we do, like we said before, about being sort of risk adverse. We do buy unconsented sites a lot, but they're always tactically taken choices. So there will always be something on the site of value, something on the site that can be rented out in the interim or used in the interim, whether it be a commercial space or a residential home. So they are risky unconsented sites, but with de-risked as much as we possibly can.
You have managed to reclassify the land. I'm sure that was a great milestone. Mm-hmm. How many planning conditions and what were the planning process did you put in a number of applications to get the site? Because it's such a beautiful place. Yeah. It's almost like a woodland. There's probably a lot of ecological considerations. Just talk us through that, Maze.
There we had a lot of conditions. So when this site was approved, for obvious reasons, obviously they want to protect the beautiful nature of this site, there was a lot of conditions. So ecological surveys, habitat surveys, bat surveys, light surveys, you name it. We surveyed it. A lot of the site as well, we had kind of lots of dig zones as well. So we had to prove that we was building in a way that was kind of not digging around the tree roots, because there's tree preservation orders on all the trees surrounding this site. And again, we want to respect that. We want to protect the site. It's a beautiful site. That's part of the joy of building a site like this, as much as it comes with its hurdles and it is difficult, but the end result is fantastic. So yes, so there was a lot of conditions attached with the original planning applications.
Did you successfully get the planning in the first attempt?
We did successfully get the planning. We kind of put it in and then we withdrew it based on some feedback. Like I said to you before, I think we was kind of originally going for a more contemporary scheme, and then I wasn't sure that was sitting right, so we withdrew it and we put it back in. But we didn't have to go to appeal. But it was still a very long process, because I think we wanted to make sure that we got the scheme right as well. So we wanted to make sure that we were submitting the right scheme, we was getting approval for the right scheme. So it was part us probably that took a while to kind of get the scheme right, and to know that we was going to get the support of the council and the local community. So yes, we did get approval first time, but there was a lot of toing and throwing.
We bought the site, reclassified it, and got the planning. We haven't put a shovel in the ground.
Nope.
Let's just talk about the numbers. What are we talking about in terms of site purchase?
So the site purchase, like I say, we paid £750,000 for the house. That was fair and kind of probably top end of what it was worth at the time.
And that's 2006 prices.
2016. Yeah, 2016. So that was a fair purchase price at the time.
Now, in terms of cost of planning and all the architect fees.
So yeah, we were easily £150,000 into planning, architects, surveys, structural drawings, everything that then comes with before you get to put a shovel in the ground. Everything we had to do was probably circa £150,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a 3 to 4 year holding period to then get to the shovel.
Yes.
What an incredible journey. Moments of anxiety to think, is it going to go through? But congratulations on passing those milestones.
Yeah, thank you.
So now you got the planning, the challenges of leveling the site to start the works.
Yeah.
What are the hurdles there?
There was lots. So this site has really sloped off towards the back of the woods, and we really had to manage. Obviously, we had to retain that. You can't just build up the site. We're surrounded by these beautiful woodlands. We then had to manage building the site, so each house kind of naturally went down with the slope, and it's kind of been really successfully delivered, because you said yourself as you walked in, like, you can't actually see where the slope is, but it is there. It's very much so. We built out with gabion fences, which you often see on the side of motorways, with the fences with the stone inside. So we built all the retaining walls with that, sourced from local quarries, because from the ecological factor, we wanted to really fit in with the local environment.
And as you put the shovel into the ground, something that all developers had never factored into their planning model, COVID hits. What do you do?
No one in any industry could factor COVID in. We was fairly fortunate in the respect that we was working outside, so we was literally just putting shovels in the ground on this site. So all the COVID restrictions that then came in, the working at distance, having limited people on site at any one time, we could adhere to those, because we was at the position of the build where we wasn't in enclosed spaces. We could limit the amount of people that was within proximity to each other. We managed our welfare facilities so that people staggered their breaks, so that people was going in at separate times. Obviously had additional cleaning in place. So all the COVID restrictions that, safety policies that were put in place, we navigated on this site. But it was kind of hit after hit as well. I don't know if you remember the Suez Canal, when the barge got caught in the Suez Canal, that was fun as well. We had shipments coming over on that. So there was a tsunami of things that kind of caused delays, and COVID was one of the main factors, but there was so many things after that happened.
What are some of the top challenges you face on this site?
Like you say, when you're building out homes like these, there are, for example, 3-4 bathrooms in each house. You've only got to get a subcontractor forgets to put the detraumating down, and then, for example, in a bathroom, then you start tiling, and then all of a sudden you've got to go in and change that. That did happen on this site. Only one bathroom, so it was fine. But there are a multitude of sort of, as on it as you can be and as on as the site managers are, but things happen. You are always going to, we're really organised, right? We run a pretty organised ship, but there are always things that you can't account for. Like you say, we actually, going back to tiles in the Suez Canal, we had our tiles being shipped over that was on that shipment. So then you're kind of looking at getting all, we had all our buyers off plan as well. Then it's a case of going back and trying to find the same products, but you can't find the same products at the same price because now, it's unavailable and the suppliers have sort of jumped on that. So we've kind of promised them they're going to have an X tile, but they can't have that X tile. So we now have to go and buy it at a sort of slightly inflated price. There are lots of things, what seem like little problems, but if you have a lot of little problems, then it become quite costly.
So what was your build budget at the beginning and what was it at the end of the project, considering all of those hurdles and the COVID, the canal, and everything else in between?
I mean, we done quite well. I think we had a build budget of about £2 million and we went over that. I think we ended up spending about 2.2 in the end. As a percentage wise, that wasn't too bad, bearing in mind all the obstacles we had to overcome. Sort of the unseen cost is a time factor. Sometimes it doesn't in real terms physically cost you more, but obviously the time frame that it's taken is time that you're not then working on another site. So the physical cost terms, we did manage to mitigate quite well, but we did have a few time constraints.
I understand. So now you're totally into the site at 3.1 million.
Mm-hmm.
What was the GDV at the end of it?
GDV was nearly 5 million. It was a pretty successful site for us.
No, certainly. I think you have done a marvelous job in terms of turning this site, and this really is a statement of how you turn potential into homes that many people I see are enjoying, especially in this particular development.
Yeah.
Are you a property developer or investor needing a financial bridge? City Estate Partners offers you bridging loans, igniting your property's potential. City Estate Partners, powering your property ambitions.
Hi, Michael. Come in. How are you?
What an entrance.
Yeah. Always good to have an imposing entrance if you can possibly do so.
What's your thought process around designing houses for other people while you have your own personal taste?
Yeah, I mean, I come from, before I was a developer, I trained in interior and structural design. So all our developments are really design driven.
So this is the biggest of the three houses on the site. What are the specs on this?
So this is a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom property. It's laid out over 2 floors. I think it's circa 3,000 square feet.
Okay, walk me through to the living space. It seems like you've really gone with an open plan feel, which accommodates the whole family.
Come through. This is the kitchen. So what we've tried to do here is we've tried to create the open plan living, which goes through into the reception rooms with these glazed doors. But obviously at any time, if you've kind of got kids in there or something and you want to separate off, you can still close the doors and you've still got that real feeling of the open space, but without actually having to always have it open. And then we lead through into the main lounge, which is quite a nice, stunning feature of the house. When we done the interior design in this house as well, we really wanted to bring in the outside. It was really key, that it's surrounded by the woodlands. So the greens and the taupes and the hues we used was really part of the design. So most developers stuff at the build. Obviously, we take it right away.
So you've done all the finishing as well?
Yeah.
Could you take us through the process then in terms of when did your clients come in for this particular house and their input into that particular process? Were there any structural changes in terms of the floor of the build, or maybe just aesthetics?
Yeah, I mean, there has to sort of be a line when you're selling off plan because there's only so much you can change. Obviously, we really want our buyers to get as much from their house as they can and be able to personalise it as much as possible, but without us having to make any major changes. It comes down to cost and time frame, and sometimes you can't change.
Let's talk us through your marketing process then in terms of your off-plan marketing. Did you sell all of them prior to completion? And how early are you selling some of these units?
I would love to sell all of them pre-completion. It doesn't always work like that. Like I said, probably about 80% is sold off plan. The agents are normally involved from quite an early point. And also, we've been going for 15 years. So once people see that we've got a development going, people tend to contact us directly as well. We've also had repeat buyers. We've had people that have bought from us and then they've had such a great process, right from beginning to end, that they've kind of wanted to buy from us again, which is great.
You have really applied a high standard of finish across all the rooms. When working with a client, do you have a set budget or do you allow them to then bring an additional budgetary factor to what they want?
Exactly that. Yeah, we do. So we have a standard finish that we would fit. And then when clients come in and if they want to upgrade their specification or they want to personalise it, obviously we can do that. And we just price accordingly as we go along because it's a standard. It can go as far as it can go. You can have you can have all sorts of different spec. Our clients are aware of that as soon as they buy a plan with us, that additional spec will be charged.
What were some of the personal touches that this client particularly requested for, especially in the living area, in the bedroom areas?
Well, this in theory could have been 6 bedrooms. As you kind of go out, and you'll see that there's a big walk-in wardrobe, open plan walk-in wardrobe, which is fabulous, which in theory is probably another bedroom. Well, it was meant to be another bedroom, but they wanted to make that a sort of walk-in wardrobe, which looks fantastic. And even down to the simple things like, we know where the bed's going, right? There's no guesswork done here, so the lights are fitted accordingly to the size bed that's going in. So in addition to the lighting and how I framed the bed, the client also wanted this panelling along the back, which looks stunning, and obviously was an additional cost, but they was happy to pay that. They've linked that up in our other bedrooms and the bathrooms as well. The paneling was a feature that they quite wanted to run through different parts of the house, so we worked with them to do that. Again, they wanted to keep this space kind of a living bedroom, so we've kind of got the seating area, which then we kind of teed in with all the soft finishings, we call it. So it's not the part of the build process, but it's those soft finishings that people really finishing off the space for people.
Great stuff. Walk us through the remaining of the first floor.
Yeah, so if you follow us through this way, this is where I was saying where the client wanted to have the beautiful walk-in wardrobe, which is absolutely stunning, and a beautiful ensuite as well, just there, which just gives the master bedroom a really grand feel. Again, if you come into the main bathroom, the panelling that the client really wanted as well follows through in here, which I think really gives it a more traditional feel, but it's tradition meets contemporary. It's a nice blend. So if we walk through, again, like I said earlier on, we kept this hallway double-heighted because it just really makes a feature of the entrance hallway. You can't be a great entrance hallway if you can get away with one. So we've got 2 additional bedrooms, 2 additional guest bedrooms, which again, one is en suite, and one is just uses the master bathroom. Again, with the interior design aspect, we really went for those sort of wholesome, earthy tones and really kind of blended in with the development as a whole. And I think it worked well. The client was really happy, and it seemed to, it gives a really nice, homely feel, I think.
This feels like you just move into this house and everything is already in place.
They haven't just moved in. They've done well to keep it looking so nice.
But in terms of the furnishings, you do everything to the bedding, to...
We can do everything. I mean, like I say, not everyone wants you to do everything, or not everyone. People are often moving their own furniture in. So, of course, you don't, we're as involved as they want us to be.
Great stuff. What a beautiful house. It's an absolute masterpiece. Looking forward to looking at the garden.
Yes.
Considering that it was a back garden for an existing house, from the front, you would think that you would not have this much of space you could allocate to each unit. Yeah. But you have so much space here.
To be honest, it was one of the things that we was most worried about when we was planning out the site. It was this fear that these gardens were not going to be in line with the size of the houses. And that was a thing that really developed and fortunately kind of exceeded our expectations, because not only did we have to deal with the levels, but, then actually making sure that the sizes worked for each individual house. And they did. They're fantastic open spaces now and great places to be able to sit and be able to socialise in. So it's really key for us to kind of always try and make the outside as livable as the inside. I mean, English weather doesn't really permit that very much, but like today.
Oh, yes. No, you can have a barbecue for all of your friends and family, and you won't feel like you're squeezed into a small backyard. It's a beautiful space.
Thank you. So if you come around this way, you will see the gabion fences that I was telling you about. Retain the soil without it being too imposing, or without it, we had to blend in with the natural ecology. So we put in the gabion fences, we sourced natural stone from local quarries, and that's how we've done it. So these are very discreet, and they're placed all the way around the site to enable us to build the houses and keep everything as level as possible, as well as staying in line with the original levels.
No, it's a beautiful setting, especially with the woodlands in the backdrop. And I can totally understand the challenges with the ecologists when you're trying to go through planning and allowing this development to come through. But you have certainly created a masterpiece, both internally and outside, with plenty of living space on the outside. Beautiful, beautiful house.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Siobhan, how did you end up in property?
So I'm a little bit of an accidental developer, actually. My roots, I used to work on a trading floor, commodities trading floor. 17 years ago, I was on maternity leave and I decided to retrain. I thought, this is an opportunity to do something you love. I retrained in structural and interior design with the view of kind of going into more of the interiors aspect of it. It was at that time, sort of pre-Olympics, where I am, Stratford, Walthamstow, Basingstoke. Those were big regeneration areas. So I started going and buying places at auction with a view of just renovating them, just putting a nice touch on them and then flipping them back out again, which went really well. I've done that for a couple of years. To be honest, it organically grew, then it became, we can do modern renovations. I had a team built up by then. We then started finding sites that had potential to build more houses on. From driving around, I drive around and I go, oh, that house has got a huge garden. And, all of a sudden, would approach them maybe. Not everyone that you approach kind of comes back to you, but sometimes someone would be interested in selling their house. And that's how the model that is Archco, really, kind of what we do, sort of got bred.
Take us back to those primitive years. Your first deal, what type of property was it?
Wow, yeah. So it was at auction and it was a 2-bed terrace house in Walthamstow. And I went to the auction. I think we bought it for about £140,000. Renovated it. I think we then probably sold it for about $220,000. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to still have it now because it's probably worth about $600,000. But, it was that sort of thing. And then we kind of modelled on that and rolled with that for a little while, kept doing those, sort of 3-4 months, each another property, all getting them from auction. Yeah, and then it just sort of did organically grow.
As you now scale up from doing the auction purchases into development sites like this, what are some of the challenges you have faced and you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone always sees it as naturally it would be a disadvantage being sort of a woman in a male-dominated industry, but I've always worked in that environment. Like I say, I worked on a trading floor when we was probably 200 men to sort of 5 women, so I kind of don't know any different, if I'm honest with you. And from my point of view, being a woman in this industry is actually quite a positive, particularly when you're dealing with people that own land or their homes and you're trying to buy them. It's nice to, I'm not saying that people don't trust you men, but I think sometimes it's nicer to people feel that they can build a little bit more relationship with you. There's kind of that natural kind of trust, that warmth maybe, that maybe women can deliver a little bit better than men sometimes. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it goes the other way. And sometimes if you're on sites, you kind of get someone that's a little bit of a dinosaur and be like, what do you know? And I'm like, well, I've been doing it for 15 years now, so I know quite a lot.
You have done so well to scale your company and achieve what you have. Mm-hmm. So currently in this kind of market environment of high interest rates, what are the strategies you are deploying? Have you changed slightly or you are still going ahead with your original plans?
Luckily, our model kind of still works with the way things are. So because we don't tend to get finance on the purchase of our site, we don't really have that we're not over leveraged. That's not something we've had to worry about too much. The bigger issues for us have been the delays. Been really difficult to get through planning. It's always been hard to get through planning, but it's taken a long time now, backlogs from COVID and political issues. It just takes a long time to get through planning, and that slows things down, which makes it trickier. If we work on the assumption that we've always got a site in planning and a site being built and a site at completion, if you've kind of got a gap in the your next one that you're going on to, and we've got a whole team to keep running. So that poses probably our most difficult issue is to stay busy, even in those times where we've got delays that we can't do anything about. So that's probably the most difficult issue that we've had to deal with.
What is your vision for Archco moving forward? What can we expect from your company in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would, you have to blow your own trumpet sometimes. I think Archco, we do what we do really well. The developments we do, the bespoke kind of boutique developments that we deliver are always going to have buyers for them because we deliver a really good product. We're always going to be targeting the right audience. We do our due diligence. So I think what we do really well. It would just be nice to do more of it. So it'd be nice to, rather than do 3 sites a year, to do 6 sites a year, or to get to the stage where you've kind of got 8 or 9 sites on the go at any one time. So it's doing what we do, but doing more of it.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you and looking at your development sites, and we expect more of the great work from you, and I look forward to hearing from you more.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If you find this video useful and informative, subscribe to our channel, like, share, and comment within this video so that we can continue to bring you more content from the world of business and real estate.